I'm Diane Hall with AARP Missouri, and I'd like to welcome you back to Movement for Life. And this is part of AARP Missouri's Moving It Fitness series. The class is suitable for all levels of fitness, and this is our second class of 6 weeks of Movement for Life classes that will be followed by 6 weeks of Yoga for All that start on March 10th. We also offer classes called Forever Fit and Zumba Light. Through all of our programming is suited for people 50 plus. It is available to anyone of any age, pretty much anywhere. To learn more about these opportunities, you can go to aarp.org/moving it, and you'll find information about our new sweepstakes for a Fitbit Versa and other prizes there as well. AARP realizes that our programs like Movement for Life can be a great option for caregivers or anyone else who may not be able to attend a traditional fitness class, and for those of you who are staying home, to reduce your risks during the pandemic. We have resources for caregivers, up-to-date COVID-19 information, and technology information on our website at aarp.org/nearyou. Now, before we get started, let's make sure that you are all set with Zoom. Right now, you should make sure that you've pinned Tyler, our instructor. That way, Tyler will stay on screen throughout your class, and you will need to see her because she'll be demonstrating movements. You don't want to see me do it. You can pin Tyler by going to her video feed, which is her little Hollywood square there. Wave, Tyler, so everybody can find you. Yeah, there you are. Click on the 3 little dots in the upper right-hand corner in her little box, and you should get a little drop-down menu and an option to pin. If you click pin in the option box, she will stay front and center. One more thing that will really help us out, and most of you I think have already done that, is if you would put yourselves on mute until the class ends and we open up for more questions. Now, let's get started with Movement for Life. Our instructor is Tyler Ferguson from Caliente Fitness. Tyler, take it away.
Hey there, you guys. Good to see you this morning. Thank you. It's nice to see those of you that are returning. And if you're here for the first time, you weren't here last week, that's no problem. We're going to do a lot of the same movements from last week, and you can count on each week layering on different layers of the movement, different interpretations of the movement, and we'll teach some new skills. Before we get started, I'd like to just address a couple of things. Those of you that were kind enough to take time to answer the survey, thank you so much. There's so many thoughts and questions that go into putting together a class like this and the appropriateness of this class. So I just wanted to respond. I read all of your feedback, and I just want to respond to a couple of those comments. For those of you that were hoping for a more vigorous or strenuous workout, I'm with you. I love burpees. I love push-ups. I love vigorous exercise, and it's important if your body is up for that. What I'm here to tell you is that as we age, our tissues become a little bit less compliant, not unlike a rubber band that's been in the back of your junk drawer. Have you ever pulled out an older rubber band and pulled it and it just snapped? Well, sadly, our tissues kind of respond the same way. So if you want to go and do those other vigorous classes that AARP offers, doing this kind of mobility and hydration and tissue work will set you up to be more successful in those classes and reduce injuries, as well as help you be functional in your movements for life. So let me give you an example. If you're somebody, and you can do this with me, if you're somebody that reaches your arms overhead, maybe you're reaching stuff off the shelves a lot, or maybe you're doing lat pull downs in the gym. This is a shoulder movement. The spine doesn't need to be involved in this movement at all. But what you'll learn is, as you lose mobility in this shoulder flexion, let's say you start to lose mobility here, watch my spine. I can get my shoulder up over my head, but look what's happening to my spine to get there. So what we're trying to do is create the awareness in the body to isolate the movement to the joint that you're trying to function, as well as increase your range of motion so that you can stop causing these little micro traumas to the spine every time you reach overhead, which could build up and one day result in a bigger injury. All right, so that's that. So what to count on for the next few weeks? Like I said, we're going to layer and add on to the previous classes. And then after our 6 weeks together, I will be offering a yoga class, which will tap more into strength. And so we can get into those down dogs. All right, let's get started. I'd like for you to be barefoot if that's comfortable in your body. And socks off too. So the skin of your feet can really touch the ground and you can spread your toes out and begin this work. Take your feet about as wide as your shoulders. The wider your base of support, the more you're going to feel balanced in this work. See if you can soften the gaze. Take the eyes away from the screen. Just gaze down to the floor in front of you and start to listen to my voice. I want to help empower you and learn about your body. And I want you to take a journey inside and explore how this work feels in your body. Lift and separate all of your toes to the best of your ability. Place them back down on the ground. And do that a couple more times. You might open up your hands and your fingers as you lift and separate your toes and put them back down. If your toes don't spread and separate today, that's okay. All of these practices are lifelong practices. It's the journey, not the destination. One more time, lift and separate the toes. Try to spread them out as wide as you can. Place them back down on the ground. Take a look down. See if there's space between the toes. And then notice, can you feel your big toe mound? Can you feel your piggy toe mound? Can you feel your heel? Press the tips of the toes down to the ground and slightly scrunch them back towards your heel. Feel your arch lift. You have the power to make your arch stronger. Release the toes. One more time, just notice the triangle in the bottom of the feet, making sure that you have equal pressure distributed between the big toe mound, piggy toe mound, and heel. And then moving up the leg, notice where your knees are. You can begin to lift the gaze and look at the screen real quickly. Are your knees locked out? We can feel and find stability from locking out, but it's not sustainable. So soft and find the bend in your knees. With a soft bend in your knees, slightly draw the ground together as if you're crushing the mat underneath you and feel all of the adductor muscles turn on in the inner thighs. Let go of that. Now start to tear the ground apart as if you're pushing your feet away from each other, stretching the mat. Feel all the muscles in the hips turn on, your abductors. So this is how you can do this work, release here, create more time under tension by doing these activations so you get a little bit more benefit from the work. See if you can pull the heels together as the toes fan and rotate out. Can you feel your glutes turn on? Soft bend in the knees. Keeping that activation, start to lengthen through the spine. So somebody asked for more postural cueing. This is the postural part of the work here. Can you bring your shoulders over the arches of the feet, over the hips, and bring your ears more in line with the shoulders? Slightly drop the chin and reach long through the crown of your head so the back of your neck feels nice and long. And breathe. Sometimes we hold our breath to find stability. So what we want to learn to do is to activate all these muscles in our body, but still tell our brain that it's okay to breathe. And release your activation, shake it all out, and then see if you can go back and find that activation again. Corkscrew, externally rotate the hips. That's the heels coming together and the toes fanning out. Soft bend in the knees, feel the glutes turn on, and elongate. So energy wants to go two directions in the body. So the corkscrewing of the feet is the grounding, and the energy through the crown of the head is the lengthening. So what you can think about is if you're zipping up a jacket, if you only grab the zipper, it's very challenging to zip up your jacket. But if you pull the bottom of the jacket and create that tension, it's easier to zip it up. Same with zipping up through the spine. Create the tension and torque at the bottom so you can lengthen up through the crown of the head. Awesome. Let's talk about our shoulders real quickly for those of you. Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot to mention, for those of you that have difficulty standing, we can do this exact work seated. And the cueing that I gave for the feet, just use those, your sit bones as your feet when you're thinking about those activations and cues. Okay? So I forgot to address that. And then for those of you that have any struggles in the shoulders, you can still stand actively right here. Any troubles in the shoulders, any overhead work that's challenging for your shoulders or painful, just bring your hands right here whenever we bring the arms overhead, or bring them out in front like you're holding a beach ball. That'll help you find your shoulder pack a little bit better. Let's reach the arms overhead or to a safe place that feels good to you. See if you can feel the energy in two directions. Fingertips reaching long, crown of the head reaching long, feet grounding into the ground, and can you breathe? Big breath into this space, exhale down. Place your hands right on your ribs. I want you to keep breathing. As you inhale, feel the rib cage expand. As you exhale, keep that expansion in the rib cage and just let the tissues underneath contract. Again, inhale, feel the rib cage expand and get big. We're doing core work right now. Exhale, just let the tissues go. We're strengthening the intercostal muscles of our rib cage. Inhale, feel the expansion. Keep the expansion, exhale here. Bring your hands right up to your chest, and we're going to begin our cervical spine, our neck mobility work. Draw your chin down in front, and then pull the back of the head up into the back position. These are neck glides, so the chin goes forward and down, back and up. Look at the screen real quick. Don't chicken peck here. See that compression? I don't want you to chicken peck up and forward. I want you to pull the chin down and back. So finding these neck glides, and here you don't want to have pain in this movement, but you might hear or feel some crunches, and there might be moments when you go faster or slower, depending on your ability to control this movement. Pause with me in the back position here, and then pretend like your head is pressing against the back of a wall. You can feel the muscles of the neck turn on the scalenes as you do that work. One more time, chin is forward, and then pull it up back into the back position. From the back position, bring the right ear toward the right shoulder. And then notice the jaw on the opposite side. Pull up towards the ceiling with that jaw to create more length in the neck. Drop your chin down to your chest and move opposite ear to opposite shoulder. And then the jaw on the other side pulls up and away. You can feel the length that you create in the what to do. It says my internet connection's unstable. Okay, we got it back. My weekend warriors. So this mobility work that we're doing today, if you're somebody that likes to lift weights or run marathons, this is the work that you would do on your rest day. So instead of completely resting, you're going to do 45 minutes of mobility work. And then for those of you that are newer to movement, then this is going to be the work to help you strengthen and perform this work as you're new to movement. Let's come back to the center. And this time I want you to take your chin, rotate, try to keep it parallel to the ground, and just look over your opposite shoulder, finding your end range here. And rotate back to center. And then rotate the chin over the other shoulder, finding your end range on this side. Notice the tendency to want to tilt down, keep the chin parallel, and then come back through center. Do this a couple more times. Notice if you can maintain the same speed as you move throughout these movements. Keep shifting to side, noticing any crunchies, and then noticing if you have more mobility in one side than the other. That's common. And you can just put that in your pocket as a note for your work today. Let's pull the chin back up and in, back into that back position. Draw the chin down to the chest. We're moving the neck into flexion here. Keep the length in the spine. Open up the throat, but try not to throw the head back on the back of the shoulders. Only open as far as it feels safe. And then a couple more times. Pull the chin down. Feel the length that you create. And then continue to lift where it feels safe. So a lot of times when we have neck pain or shoulder rounding pain, simply pulling our chin in can do a lot to alleviate that pain. As we keep moving, as we work at the computer, we start to glide forward. So that cue of pulling the ears over the shoulder is not unlike pulling the chin in to create length in the back of the neck. Let's go back to our glides. We did forward and back already. Let's go side to side. So keeping your chin parallel to the ground, Can you glide your ear or your jaw over to the opposite shoulder? So I'm going to show you what it looks like when you kind of move fast. This is another movement that can be really challenging to find on day one. So I see some of you, you're rotating a little bit. That's common. All right. Or you're tilting a little bit. That's common. Try to keep it and just glide. So if the gliding is challenging for you, what you can do is just do about 45 degrees. So glide and go forward and glide and go forward. Glide and forward, glide and forward. Now let's put all that together. Come to the back position, side position, forward, opposite side. So now we're creating circular movement. Right now it's just staccato. We're hitting our 4 points, but then you can start to glide through and create circles. So notice your ability to control the cervical spine without moving anywhere else in the body. Meet me in this back position. Let's just go the opposite direction. So whatever direction we move, we want to do the counter movement. So we're hitting our 4 points as we start off, just making sure we map out in our brain where the 4 points are. I see a couple of you, you got your shoulders up in your ears. Pull those shoulders down and away as you do that movement, and then start to glide and find those circles. Nice work. Good job, guys. All right, let's let go of the cervical spine today. We'll work down into the shoulders. Let's roll the shoulders up into the ears and back down the back. And as you're doing this work, I want you to imagine your shoulder blades or your scapula on your back body. So even though I'm cueing the shoulders up, what we're doing is we're elevating the scapula and depressing the scapula. So the scapula lifts up the rib cage on your back, and then it glides down the rib cage on your back. So you want nice movement in the scapula. You want to get rid of any adhesions, anything that would limit your movement. Let's bring our arms forward now, and I'd like for you to lock out the arms. So try not to lose or leak energy in the elbows. Lock out the arms, make fists, create tension in the arms, and then we're going to chase our shoulders. Right arm goes up, down, and back. Left arm goes up, down, and back. Right arm up, down, and back, and left arm. Now, as you're doing this work, let's layer on. Are your knees softly bent? Are you corkscrewing the hips a little bit and finding that external rotation to keep you more stable in the hip? Moving back up to what we're doing in the shoulders, we're putting our shoulders into pack. Each time the shoulder goes down, we're looking to engage our lat muscle, which is a huge core muscle. And the shoulder work is an example how the shoulders and shoulder pack is a part of your core. Let's move to the elbows. You're going to take the wrists and bring them forward. Bring your thumbs out like Fonzie. Then the thumbs go up to the ears, and then open up your wrist to the ceiling, and then turn them back down. Thumbs to the ears, rotate and open, and then rotate back down. So now just get a little bit more fluid with that movement, feeling the rotation in the elbow. See if you can feel the elbow joint rotating. So we're just finding our range of motion in the elbow joint as we hydrate. And we have to go the opposite way. So come with me with our wrists up and our thumbs out. We're going to bring our wrists and thumbs to the ears, and then we're going to punch through. Open it up, fist to ears, and punch through. And then moving just a little bit more fluidly. So if you do a lot of push-ups or downward dogs or a lot of weight-bearing exercises on your arms, having this hydration and mobility in the elbows will be beneficial. Let's go to the wrists, and you want to pretend like you're holding onto a bar. Lift your wrist up above the hand and your wrist down below the hands. Try to keep the hands in the same place in space and just move your wrists into flexion and extension. And you'll notice you're going to start waking up the arm muscles of the lower arm. So maybe some of the muscles associated with typing, keyboarding, or any kind of fine motor movement you do with your hands, any kind of needle point or rug hooking or any of those activities. So that's flexion and extension of the wrist. Bring them to neutral. Take this bony inside of the wrist, bring it to the midline, and bring it away. To the midline and away. So for my weightlifters out there, when you're swinging weights around or moving weights around, you want to have a nice grip on the weight. So we're improving our grip strength here, as well as our wrist mobility when we're planting our arms on the ground. Let's go all 4 directions. Let's go wrists up, wrists in, down, and out. Up, in, down, and out. And then circle that out. Get in there and find it. Feel all the clicks. If you're starting to creep your shoulders up into the ear as you do this work, notice that. Pull the shoulders down. This is isolation work. So we want to turn off the muscles that aren't involved and turn on the stuff that is. Let's go the other direction. I can see if I can remember. We'll go wrists up, then we'll go out and down and in. Did I go the other direction? I hope so. If I didn't and I'm wrong, you can figure out what the other direction is. So trying to make those 4 points that we just learned more mobile. Good. And then to our fingers and hands, A-OK. And then open it up, swirl it around, and do an ice cream cone. And get really dramatic here. Spread the fingers out wide. Feel the fascia and the webbing of the hands. Open up and stretch as you're moving through the fingers, doing this work. And yeah, the elbows are coming up a little bit, but I'm not creeping my shoulders up into the ears and holding unnecessary tension. Great work, guys. Let's go back to the shoulders. We're going to do our shoulder screws. So our arms are out wide like we're holding batons. So the thumbs are up. Let's re-corkscrew and find that active stance and that elongated posture. Now, starting on one side, I'm going to elevate, rotate my hand down, and then look over the opposite side and pull my arms apart. So you're going to feel quite a bit of sensation here, but no pain is allowed. And then unroll and unpack that. Other side, elevate, rotate down, and then look over the opposite side, pull, pull, pull the arms apart as much as that feels safe to you. And then let's move a little bit quicker. Elevate, rotate, look and reach, unpack, elevate, rotate, look and reach. Continuing to move here, we're working our rotator cuffs. And most of us start to feel some rotator cuff damage after about 50. There's something we do that happens to our rotator cuff. And it's probably something like, I've done this my whole life, but my tissues are less compliant, maybe a little sticky, a little stuck, and they don't work with us. And then we wind up finding some injury. So I really want you to notice with this shoulder screw work, do you feel a little bit of improvement in the mobility of your rotator cuffs? Let's bring the arms down and rest from that work. So that's a lot of work on the shoulders. And you can just let the arms flap against the body. You can just feel the blood flow move down into the fingertips. You can even rotate the torso a little bit. And then come to stillness and then shake out your hands. You can move your head. Let all that shoulder work go. Let's get into our thoracic spine, or the spine, the area of the spine associated with the rib cage. So the first thing we'll do is to bring our arms right back up, flatten out the hands, corkscrew and pack the feet, and then glide over to one side of the room. So notice my hips aren't moving at all. I'm moving above my hips. Come back to center and glide over to the other side of the room. So we're moving our spine into lateral flexion, one of the many directions our spine needs to move. Our spine flexes forward and back, or flexion and extension, forward and back. This lateral flexion happens, and then we have rotation in the spine, which we'll visit today. Good work. So notice you can reach a little bit further, like you're sliding your armpit on a bar, the more you corkscrew and pack and turn on your glutes, the more you engage there. Great work, guys. Now, let's go a little bit of flexion and extension in the thoracic spine. We'll stand tall and neutral. So curves in the spine is different. So neutral equals curves. Neutral doesn't equal straight. We have natural curves in our spine. This inward curve at the cervical spine, this outward curve at the thoracic spine, and this inward curve at the lumbar spine. We just don't want to be accentuated in any of those curves. So coming to our neutral spine, bring your hands together, and if it feels safe, make these pointer fingers. Draw the chin to the chest and push your pointer out in front of you. Feel the scapula or the shoulder blades open up across your back. Breathe into that. As you draw the chin to the chest, feel that extra little length in the cervical spine. If you're looking at the screen, look down right now because we really want the neck to be in this forward flexion. And then release the bind in your hands. Start to look up at the screen now. Open up the hands and stretch the arms open. So you can start to lift the gaze even above the screen a little bit. Now, can you feel your shoulder blades touch in the back?
No.
Let's move back into that forward flexion. So this is called shoot and round. So we're shooting our fingers forward. We're rounding through our back, separating the shoulder blades. And then we're going to peel open. So notice how the heart starts to move forward. The shoulder blades come together, the gaze lifts. Do that a couple more times on your own and breathe. Exhale. Shoot and round. Inhale. Peel it open. Exhale. Shoot and round. Inhale. Peel it open. And pause. So your arms probably need a little bit of a rest right now. Place your hands on the hips. So why do we do that work? I talked about your shoulder blades. They need to glide on your rib cage. The movement of your arms is dependent on those shoulder blades being able to mobilize and move. And if they're just stuck, all your fascia has just got them stuck there, then that mobility is going to come from somewhere else, sometimes from the shoulder rotator cuff, which can cause some of your pain. Place your hands on your hips. Let's come to that neutral spine again. But this time, let's learn about our pelvis. So in a neutral spine, my belt is a little, there we go. You can see that the top of the pelvis is like a bowl or like a bucket. So with your hands on your hips, I want you to pour water out of the front of the bucket and then pour water out of the back of the bucket. And then most of us, how we stand in life, and make this observation in the mirror the next time you're in the bathroom, try to notice how you hang out in life. I am a forward tilt person. That's kind of how I hang out. Sometimes we can be this backward tilt person. So what we're going for is neutral, but notice the ability to even control this movement. Sometimes when I try to get clients to do this movement, they're all bending the knees and hinging at the hips and moving their trunk. No, just the pelvis is what we're moving. And here are some words for you to remember. When we forward tilt the pelvis, that's sassy. Notice my low back is in a sassy kind of position. And then when I tuck and tilt the pelvis back, I'm in more of a cashew position. Sassy and cashew. And there's reasons in our movement to have the spine more in a sassy or cashew position, but we'll get to that later. Let's bring the spine to neutral, hands on the hips. Let's root the hips over to one side. Pause and breathe into that sensation. Feel the stretch that you're getting on the outside of the hip. You can even palpate and feel that stretch. And then bring your hips back to center and move them over to the other side. Yeah, so before we were keeping our hips still and moving our shoulders. Now the shoulders are more over the ankles and we're moving in our hips. So let's move back and forth a little bit more fluidly, but I want you to move intuitively. I want you to be empowered and take control of your movement and your health so you can trust your instincts on this movement if it's beneficial for you. Let's come back to neutral and take our spine into a little bit of sassy right now, and then go over with a sassy spine. And notice how it might feel different with a more sassy spine as we move in those directions with a side hip root. This is called a side hip root, and our spine is sassy. Sassy is so much easier to remember than anterior tilt. Okay, let's come back to neutral and take our spine and make it cashew. All right, so another way to feel cashew is if your sacrum lengthens down to your heels, and then we're going to try to hip root from a cashew orientation. And you might feel that you have a little bit less mobility in that cashew orientation. Good work, guys. and then coming back to neutral. Let's take the hips a little bit forward. So I want you to squeeze the glutes and allow the hip points just to drift forward a little bit. So we're starting to get into a back bend. Feel how the heart lifts a little bit. And then you can slightly bend the knees and take it into sassy. Squeeze the glutes, let the hip points drift forward. And then send the hips back, take it into a little bit of sassy. Now let's find those four corners. So we're gonna hip root side, go back to sassy, hip root side, and then lengthen, squeeze the glutes, let the hip points come forward. Side,
Like a hula.
back, other side, forward. Now circle it out, just like we did our necks, just like we did our wrists. So alignment is important, particularly when we're bearing weight. But the reality is when we move throughout our day, we're not moving into perfect alignment. So we're exploring all these different directions we might move. Pause here with the hips forward, squeeze the glutes, notice how that protects the low back, and then take yourself the other direction. Sassy, side, cashew, and forward. And then circle all of that out. Notice your feet as you're doing these circles. Do you have a tendency to roll to the inside and outside edges of your feet? Can you spread your toes and still keep the weight evenly placed on the heel, the big toe mound, and the piggy toe, or the piggy mound of the foot, and then come to standing? We're going to start working the hips, particularly the hip socket. So it's appropriate now if you'd like to go to a wall and use a wall for balance, or bring a chair into your practice for balance. If you're seated right now, you would just come to the front of the chair and you're going to turn your knee in, try to keep this leg neutral, and turn your leg out. For our standing work, I'd like for you to shift the weight into one leg. This is how I would use a chair for some support. And then peel the heel up of the opposite leg. Now let's talk about the leg that you're standing on right now. Are you locking the knee out for stability? Can you soften that knee? Can you create that length like the zipper? Crown of the head pulls it in, and then start to fan the knee inward and outward. Keep your toes on the ground, and then maybe one hand on your torso. Because what can happen is we're working on differentiation or isolation, isolating movement to one joint. And if we don't have that relationship in the brain yet, we might accidentally just turn the whole torso. So the hip isn't moving, the torso is moving. So we're going to keep the torso still and just move the hip. Turn it in, find your in range, knee into the midline, and then knee out. And then hopefully you can begin to feel the movement of the femur head in the hip joint. Learning all these parts of your body can empower you to take charge of your own health. Let's pause and get on the other side, and let me tell you about that. My mom is in her late 80s, and she's had a couple falls and a couple injuries, elongate, soften the knee. But when she goes to the doctor, she really can't explain the type of pain that she's feeling and exactly where she's feeling it. She really doesn't have a relationship with the body at all, the joints, how they relate to the muscles, what pain feels like, what tightness feels like, what discomfort feels like. So what I hope that you can get from this mindful time together is not only the physical benefits that we get, the nervous system can calm as we breathe, we hydrate the tissues of the body, but to empower and educate ourselves about how to move and how to understand the relationship between joints and muscles and the anatomy of our body. Good work, guys. And then we'll pause right there on our hip work today. Let's just come to standing, slide our hands down, and just do some circles, like our knees are drawing circles over the outline of our feet. So if there were pins or brushes hanging down from our knees, we'll be drawing these nice little circles. I see somebody doing a sassy dance up there. I love it. Crisscrossing the legs. Yeah, I see ya. Can you do the zipper? I don't even know how to do the zipper. Let's take our knees the other direction. We'll talk about that other. We'll have a zipper class. Take the knees in the other direction. The other thing I want to say about my mom is she's now in physical therapy. And people used to say, well, give me your elevator pitch for why I should do movement classes with you. We're going to shift and do our balance work right now. Or not quite, we're going to do our ankle work. So come to a split stance. And as you're in a split stance, you want to be wide like you're in train tracks, or yeah, train tracks, side by side. You could use your hands for balance, but notice it pulls my shoulders in front of my hips and it could pull me out of alignment. So if it's possible to maintain an upright position doing this, that's great. Can you keep your heel in alignment with your toe and lift the heel? So notice I'm not here, my heel's in alignment back here. And then I'd like for you to just lower and lift the heel. I want to show you this orientation because there's a soft bend in this front knee. And then as you lower and lift this back heel, you're gonna feel some things. Let's take some time here. So one, spread the toes and then push down in the ball and the piggy toe and the foot as you lift the heel up above. Pause with me here with the heel lifted. Turn on that back glute. Squeeze that back glute. That is a huge stabilizer. Can you start to find that external rotation in the hip? Ah, that feels so delicious to me. And then lowering the heel back down, getting a nice little stretch into the Achilles tendon. So we're strengthening the ankle here. Notice if you can maintain the same speed as you lift and lower. So sometimes if you speed up or slow down, that can bring your awareness to a dysfunction, not a dysfunction, but maybe a lack of connection, a lack of control or strength. Awesome sauce. Let's just switch it up. Bring your back leg forward, bring your front leg back. Remember, front knee, there's a soft bend or even a deeper bend in the front knee. And you want to have your heel in alignment with your toes. So your hips are in what I call a closed hip orientation. Both hips are forward. If you had your foot down like a warrior, this back hip would be in an open orientation, but that's not what we're doing. All right, so let's just lift and lower. And then find those places in the body here. So first we're kind of mobilizing the ankle a little bit. And then let's pause with our heel lifted at top and squeeze the glute on. So if there's any yogis out there that do vinyasa yoga, where you maybe go from downward dog and you step into low lunge, the ability to have this mobility in the foot is crucial. Go ahead and lower and lift to being able to step through into that low lunge. So back to my mom and the PT and my elevator pitch. So somebody said, well, why should I do the movement classes? And I said, well, when you get assigned 30 minutes with your physical therapist, and your physical therapist says, come to standing with a neutral spine, let's go ahead and bring the back foot forward. Let's stand with a neutral spine. If the therapist in their 30-minute session with you has to spend 10 minutes explaining what a neutral spine feels like, then you only have 20 minutes left for the therapy. But if you've put in the work now and you nail it, now you've got 29 and a half more minutes to do your physical therapy work. Remember, those of you with a shoulder injury, don't take your bind overhead. But if the rest of you feel healthy in the arms, you can reach overhead. You can grab your opposite elbows for a bind, hold on to a beach ball, or like I said, come across. If it feels good to bind overhead, let's just create some length. So corkscrew the hips, soft bend in the knees, pull the rib cage up out of the pelvic bowl. So we want to create room for our lungs to expand and unstick any sticky adhesions that might not allow the lungs to expand. I like to call these TikToks, and they're beneficial no matter how you do them. It's a nice little movement to do every morning. Now pause with me here. If you're squeezing your glutes, turn them off for a second. Take the external rotation out, and then notice how it feels. Maybe you might feel the opposite leg start to pull off the ground. But if you do externally rotate and squeeze the glutes, you can feel that your low back, your lumbar spine is a lot more protected here. Great. Let's bring our hands down to the side. And we're going to do our little rotational activity. So our feet are about hip distance apart, soft bend to the knees, arms reach forward. And I want you to focus on the rib cage. We're trying to rotate through the rib cage here. Taking my right arm, I'm going to trace my fingers along the inside of my left arm, but what I'm really doing is moving my rib cage. My right rib is rotating to the back of the room, and my left rib is coming from the left side of the room over to the right. You can keep a bend in the arms if that's too intense. Maybe take your gaze back. That will challenge your balance. Drop your arm that's extended back behind. Reach out in front. Let's do that 2 more times. So as the fingers trace the arm, it's more about the rib cage. Rotate the ribs, rotate the ribs. So we're moving our spine into rotation, reaching the fingers back, maybe gaze back, only lengthen the arms as much as that feels okay to you. And then drop your arm back one final time. This time I really want you to find that corkscrew. Squeeze, squeeze, squeeze your glutes hard. And then try to move, feel the rib cage move above the hips. So pause with me here at about midway. Pull your left hip back in space and your right hip forward in space. And then continue open. It's a little bit harder to rotate without getting the movement in the hips. And that's normal. Just differentiate and notice that. And then bring yourself back up to the front. And we'll take this move on the other side. Soften it up. Arms come out forward and start to peel yourself open. So even though I'm cueing the arms, this is really about the trunk. It's about the spine. It's about the rib cage. That's your warm-up one. And then as you take your gaze back, you see that the cervical spine gets into rotation too. Drop the back arm, reach it forward. Let's breathe. Inhale here. Exhale. Peel it open. Left ribs reach to the back of the room. Right ribs cross over to the left side of the room. And drop your hand back. This time really corkscrew. Turn on those glutes. Keep your belly button facing forward. Pull as your left arm goes back. Pull your left hip forward in space. Right hip back. A little bit harder to rotate open. That's okay. Don't hurt yourself. Don't force it. Just notice it and bring your hands back to center. I like to call this sphere of tension. Pressing the fingers into each other, you can kind of make the elbows buoyant, bring them up and down, find your shoulder pack here. It is a pleasure and an honor to share this practice with you. Thank you all for coming today, and I hope to see you next week. Thanks for coming.